Over 60? Discover the 4 shocking fruits you must avoid and 4 amazing ones to eat daily for transformation. Ellen Harris's heart raced as she read the headline on her phone's screen, the words blaring like an alarm. At 64, and just back from an unnerving visit to the clinic, she couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that had settled deep within her. The doctor's clinical words echoed through her mind, potential health issues looming like dark clouds. Would she have the stamina to keep up with her spirited grandchildren? The bakery smell from the piles of her famous pies crowded her thoughts. Sweet memories floated by, yet the fresh fruit salads teasingly danced before her eyes. But now, she was confronted with this article. Could fruit really hold such power over her health? Ellen hesitated, her fingers hovering over the blurred text, spiraling into conflicting emotions. The resolve she had with her family a rock in every storm now felt fragile. Uncertainty gnawed at her. What if I have to ditch my peach cobbler? She mused, panic flaring. Are these changes really necessary? The drive home was a blur of trees and flickering lights. Each turn seemed to lead her deeper into a labyrinth of questions. Memories spun like a carousel. Summer afternoons filled with laughter as her grandchildren stacked vibrant fruits into jumbled bowls. The thought of abandoning those moments felt unbearable, yet she felt the need to adapt battle for her health. A boiling cauldron of nostalgia bubbled within her, teetering between fear of loss and the quest for a healthier path. What kind of legacy was she leaving if she didn't strive to be around for her family? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The article whipped her into a frenzy of culinary ideas, but also deep confusion. What should she replace her well-loved fruits with? The pressure of change loomed large, an insistent tide threatening to sweep away cherished family recipes. Each instruction about amazing fruits she must now embrace felt surreal and restrictive. Unease mingled with determination in her gut. Could she really withstand the wave of change while providing her family with warmth and love through their meals? What if healthy eating meant losing the essence of family gatherings defined by the very flavors that had once brought them all together? Her thoughts twisted like strands of spaghetti as she stood at the kitchen counter days later, stirring a new fruit compote laden with kale and bizarre berries. Each stroke of the spoon was a silent confrontation. It wasn't tea, just an ingredient swap. It was an attempt to redefine who she was. Even as she tasted a spoonful, feeling the vitality seep into her, doubt inked its way back into her mind. Was she sacrificing one form of happiness for another? Was this new path merely setting a stage for her own memories to fade away? Just then, her phone buzzed, a call from her daughter, her voice laced with concern. Mom, are you sure you can keep up at Tommy's track meet? You know how excited he gets when you cheer him on. The prospect of disappointing her grandson shattered her moment of calm. Could she really chase after him at the meet in her new state, or would this new chapter come at a cost? As Ellen hung up, she fixated on the nuanced uncertainties of life, her fingers trembling against the countertop. With memories of joyful days behind her and a future full of demands ahead, she wrestled with her legacy. Would she find a way to blend the old with the new, or would the pressures of reinvention shatter the balance she so desperately sought? In this tangled web of change, the path forward felt tumultuous, leaving her on the brink of a decision that could alter everything. Ellen stood frozen in her kitchen, the vibrant chaos of her thoughts colliding with the reality of her situation. The fruit compote simmered on the stove behind her, quietly waiting like a patient advisor. With her hands splayed against the cold counter, she inhaled sharply, attempting to gather her scattered resolve. Her attempt at a healthier life clashed with the warmth of tradition, and the battle was heavy on her heart. Determined to reclaim her peace, she picked up the phone once more. An idea flickered in her mind. Perhaps she could connect with others. Ellen navigated to a local online group dedicated to healthy living after 60. As she scrolled through the vibrant posts filled with success stories, tips, and vibrant pictures of colorful meals, A spark of hope ignited within her. These individuals were navigating similar waters, confronting the very fears that haunted her. Could their experiences light her way? With a deep breath, she typed a post about her dilemma, her fingers quivering with vulnerability. Hello everyone. I'm Ellen, 64, and facing some health issues. I'm drawn between my love for baking and being a healthier version of myself. How do you balance traditional recipes with new, healthier ingredients? As she pressed post, a sense of release washed over her. It was liberating to invite dialogue on her struggles. Almost immediately, replies poured in. Several members shared their own transformations, many encountering similar fears. One woman recounted how she transitioned her famous pie recipes by incorporating almond flour and sugar substitutes, maintaining the flavor while enhancing the nutrition. Another suggested hosting a family dinner where healthy versions of traditional meals were showcased, allowing everyone to taste and enjoy them together. Each comment resonated deeply. Ellen began to realize that she wasn't alone in her challenges. She paraphrased the advice she absorbed. Note to self-adjust recipes so they can evolve rather than disappear. Make the old become new. But her mind still turned over the impending track meet. She envisioned Tommy's face lighting up as he spotted her in the stands. Yet the image brought its own angst. Could she cope with the physical demands? A moment of reckless determination seized her, and she decided then and there to recommit to health positively. It wasn't merely about reinventing recipes. It was about rebuilding her physical capabilities that allowed her to continue being the grandmother she loved being. She shuffled toward the back door and into the cool evening air. The sky was tinted with deep hues of orange and pink, a reflection of her internal transformation unfolding. Ellen felt inspired to take action. Tomorrow, she would walk to the park and join a local walking group that had been advertised. This was the first step, a deliberate commitment to her health, her legacy, and her shared joys. That night, as she prepared for bed, something remarkable happened. The edges of her fears slowly began to dissolve under the weight of newfound determination. Cooking had always been her form of expression, and now it would evolve alongside her. Perhaps she would create a new signature dish to serve at family gatherings for the next holiday. A healthier peach cobbler that honored her past while embracing her future. Ellen smiled at the thought, reveling in the promise that her journey would not merely be about loss, but about gaining the strength to thrive and joy with her family. But as she closed her eyes, a flicker of doubt lingered. Would her family welcome these changes? Would she be brave enough to voice her new choices without the fear of disappointing them? The questions echoed gently in her mind as she drifted into sleep, a moment of reflection before embarking on a path she both craved and feared. As the dawn approached, Ellen awoke, tangling with the larger questions that now loomed overhead. Would her transformation inspire laughter and excitement during meal times, or would it spark resistance and resentment? She sat up, letting the sunlight spill into her room, wondering if the risks she was willing to take would ultimately bring her closer to the family she adored or push them away. It was time to find out. Ellen pulled the soft cotton sheets away and stepped into the day, allowing the sunlight to bathe her skin and awaken her senses. The initial thrill of the journey ahead filled her. Today was not merely about the walking group. It represented a leap toward her self-improvement, a tangible commitment to her health. As she washed up, the mirror reflected not just her physical self, but the emotional resolve that began to form beneath the surface. Dressing felt different today. Each button she fastened was a symbolic act of preparation, each zipper drawn a representation of closure against her doubts. She chose comfortable shoes, sturdy, ready for the adventure that lay ahead, but beneath the practicality lingered a little trepidation. This was no longer about the philosophical exercise of health. It was about showing up, confronting her fears head-on. Believing in her right to evolve get to the park, she decided to walk, embracing the rhythm of her feet against the pavement. With every step, she focused on her breathing, allowing the fresh air to fill her lungs, suppressing the impatient whispers of insecurity. What would the group be like? Would she fit in among these strangers who had embarked upon similar journeys? Or would she be just another grandmother clinging to her past? She desperately wanted to believe that she could rise above her worries. Upon reaching the park, the gathering crowd nearly overwhelmed her senses. Vibrant energy filled the atmosphere as laughter and chatter resonated against the backdrop of trees dancing in the gentle breeze. Ellen held her breath for a moment, scanning the diverse faces, each representing a unique story of struggle and resilience. Swallowing her reservations, she approached a small group, their easy camaraderie inviting her to join. "Hey there!" A jovial woman, adorned in bright leggings, waved as Ellen approached, joining us for a walk. Her smile had the kind of warmth that suggested openness, an invitation to blend in. "Hi. Yes, I'm Ellen. I want to get back into shape." The words stumbled out, but as she spoke, a surprising confidence began swelling within. "That's what we're here for. Together." As the group began their walk, Ellen could feel the stirring of camaraderie lifting her spirit. They shared their stories, offering their successes and hardships like badges of honor. As she listened, she discovered that even among the most confident, vulnerability played a role in shaping their journeys. Ellen found herself unfolding, admitting her trials with baking and her wish to embrace healthier living without losing traditional flavors. "Have you ever thought about creating a healthier version of your signature dish?" Another member asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Yes," Ellen mused. "I'm hoping to evolve my recipes while keeping the essence of what they mean to my family." The words flowed more easily than expected, as if they had been waiting to break free for too long. Ideas sparked from the exchange, compelling her to envision how her cooking could be transformative rather than static. However, as the group grew lively, Ellen noticed her feet begin to tire. The physical shift brought back familiar whispers of insecurities. What if she couldn't keep up? What if, despite her good intentions, she faltered? It seemed her mind was always 2 steps ahead, questioning her determination. As they reached the halfway point, the leader called for a short break. Ellen took a seat on a bench, sweat beading on her forehead, but her heart raced for a different reason. Here she was, surrounded by people who shared her struggles, willing to step alongside her on this journey. Then the looming question echoed in her mind again: would her family embrace these healthy changes? The radical shift she had contemplated felt daunting now. Would they accept her evolution or resist it? Suddenly, the sun dipped behind a cloud, shading Ellen momentarily in uncertainty. As the sky transitioned, a hint of clarity arose within her. She had to face her family with honesty, voice her aspirations boldly, and allow them to see her for the person she was working to become. The time had come to confront not only her personal resistance, but to share her vulnerability with those who mattered most. As the group resumed their walk, Ellen squared her shoulders, letting resolve wash over her. It wasn't just about the recipe updates anymore. It was about presenting her whole self authentic and courageous. As she breathed in the fresh air, a new thought dawned. Would she have the courage to host that family dinner showcasing her healthier versions of beloved meals? Ellen quickened her pace, fueled by the rising sun, paving the road not just toward health, but toward deeper connection. Would today be the day she found her voice among both strangers and family alike? Ellen felt a surge of warmth mixed with anticipation as she completed the walk, her heart racing not just from the exertion, but from the realization of her potential. The vision of hosting that family dinner now loomed larger in her mind. Her feet, though tired, pounded against her resolve, each step echoing a promise to herself. As she said her goodbyes to the group, the upbeat chatter still buzzing in her ears, she replayed the questions posed earlier. The idea of reinventing her recipes had sparked something within her that hadn't ignited in years. The familiar walls of her kitchen felt like a fortress of old routines, protecting not just her beloved recipes, but her identity as a caregiver and a nurturer. The thought of doing something new was both liberating and terrifying. The walk back home was different. The rhythm altered, no longer just a mechanical process of moving from point A to B, but a cognitive pilgrimage toward understanding who she was becoming. The landscape around her seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. She noticed the flowers blooming along the sidewalks, their resilience mirroring her own budding willingness to change. Entering her kitchen, the warm scent of lingering spices washed over her, hinting at the traditional meals she had always prepared. Ellen stood still for a moment, absorbing the history of the space. Today, however, she carried a different energy, a sense of responsibility to both her family and her own health. The thought of transforming her cooking into a healthier version shook her with a mixture of fear and excitement. What if her family rejected these changes? A part of her froze at the prospect of disappointment overshadowing her efforts. But as she unpacked her groceries, Ellen's determination reignited. There was power in becoming a source of inspiration rather than simply conforming to the expectations that had governed her kitchen for so long. She picked up a zucchini, envisioning the countless possibilities. Healthy lasagna, she whispered to herself, the words forming a pact. Swapping pasta for thinly sliced vegetables was uncharted territory, but the thrill of experimentation stirred her. This wasn't just dieting. It was an act of love, a bridge to extend toward her family. Ellen spent the next few days poring over recipes and substitutions, each discovery a tiny victory. She transformed roasted vegetables into vibrant salads, swapped sugar for natural sweeteners, and introduced legumes to familiar dishes. Every step strengthened her sense of ownership in this journey, and she began to hear the encouraging hum of her inner voice, pushing her forward. Yet the most daunting challenge lay ahead: the dinner invitation. The thought haunted her like a specter. Would her family accept her? Would they embrace, ridicule, or even belittle her efforts? Ellen was acutely aware of the weight of their expectations and the potential for their disappointment. Was she ready to confront this barrier? As the appointed day for the dinner approached, self-doubt crept in. Those whispers steadily grew louder, asking if she truly had the courage to face the men and women who shaped her past. Casting aside her fears, Ellen sat down with pen and paper. Each word she wrote about the dinner felt like an affirmation, chipping away at her insecurity. She designed the meal to tell a story, her story, rendered vivid through the health-conscious adaptations she had embraced. Determined, she decided to not only share the meal, but also share the purpose behind the changes. She would open the floor to dialogue, allowing her family to express their apprehensions and even push back if they needed to. It would not be a battle of wills, but a gathering born from love and understanding. That as the night approached, Ellen stood in her kitchen, the scent of roasted garlic and herbs filling the air. Surrounded by vibrant dishes representing her journey, she felt a compelling mixture of dread and excitement. The moment had come to not just share food, but to share her evolution. And with a deep breath, she realized the most profound transformation lay not in the ingredients, but in her newfound strength to communicate her truth. Would they understand the significance of this moment? Would they see the courage behind her culinary journey? Or would the fear of change persist? As the doorbell rang, Ellen's heart raced, anticipating the uncertain crossroads of connection and acceptance that lay ahead. As Ellen opened the door, a rush of emotions crashed over her: anticipation, uncertainty, and a flicker of hope. The faces of her family members, each carrying their distinct blend of surprise and skepticism, greeted her. She forced a smile, the warmth in her chest battling against the tightening in her gut. "Wow, Ellen, it smells incredible in here," her sister Alice remarked, her eyes widening as they swept over the spread before them. But the slightest arch of her brow suggested disbelief, a hint of wariness regarding the unfamiliar dishes. Ellen welcomed them into her home, her kitchen now a vibrant tapestry of color and flavor, each plate a testament to her commitment to change. She had spent hours curating the meals, every detail meticulously chosen to reflect her journey, yet she felt incredibly exposed as they gathered around the table. Ellen nervously clasped her hands. She glanced at the healthy lasagna, its warm zucchini layers enticing yet foreign to the family that favored classic recipes. Hearts pounding, she shared her story, the metamorphosis she had undertaken, not only for herself but for them. "I wanted to create something that nourished not just our bodies, but our spirits," she said boldly, attempting to mask the tremor in her voice. The silence that followed was deafening. Ellen's brother, Jim, broke it first. "Looks interesting. Does it actually taste good?" His question wasn't overtly mocking, but it felt that way, cutting through her burgeoning confidence. "Why don't you try it?" Ellen replied, her voice steadying as a flash of determination coursed through her. She watched as everyone hesitated, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Would they reject what she had so passionately created? Would they scorn the healthy changes that reflected her own struggles and growth? One by one, they hesitated before plating the food. She held her breath as they took their first bites. Seconds dragged into an eternity as Ellen scrutinized their expressions. With each chew and swallow, she waded through the unpredictable waters of their receptions. The initial wariness seemed to shift slightly. Alice smiled, just a fraction, but it was there. "This is really different," she said, her voice softer. "I actually like it." Encouraged by her sister's response, Ellen seized the moment. "Different can be good. It can be exactly what we need." Her voice resonated with intent, her desire to bridge the gap between past traditions and a healthier future becoming apparent. With every passing minute, the dialogue at the table picked up. Questions flowed about the ingredients, the process, and the intention behind each dish. Ellen shared her culinary journey, her rediscovery of herself through her art in the kitchen, and her vision for healthier meals that did not lessen their family bonds. Yet, amidst the warmth of acceptance bubbled a flicker of dissent. "But why change everything? We've always done it this way," Grandma said hesitantly. Stirring the pot of resistance Ellen had feared most, her heart sank. The comfort her grandmother found in the familiar starkly clashed with Ellen's ambition for growth. Yet she leaned into the discomfort. "Change doesn't mean we forget our past," Ellen countered. "It means we honor it while also nourishing our future." As the conversation swelled, Ellen felt a growing tide of empowerment. Each nod, every softening expression was a confirmation of her courage to share not just a meal, but a piece of her evolution. But beneath the surface, the saga of resistance loomed large, and she understood the complexities of familial ties wouldn't be resolved in a single dinner. That night, Ellen earned not just tentative acceptance, but ignited conversations about lifestyle, changes, of burgeoning awareness unfurling among them. It was exhilarating yet exhausting. As they wrapped up dinner and their goodbyes grew nearer, she sensed a reckoning on the horizon. Would the newfound dialogue birth lasting change, or fade like the remnants of their meal? Locking eyes with her grandmother, Ellen felt the familiar bond of tradition, battling against the yearning for progress. Though the evening extended hope, the palpable tension suggested more conversations awaited them, conversations that would test her commitment. Ellen stood at the kitchen sink, staring out at the remnants of the day, the plates gritty with the evidence of her efforts. She wondered, would resistance yield to collective understanding, or would it morph into a silent discord that challenged her resolve? As she turned away from the sink, the echoes of their narratives still swirling around her, she realized if she wished to navigate this burgeoning evolution, future gatherings would require more than just a meal. They would demand courage, grit, and perhaps a willingness to confront truths that lay buried beneath layers of comfort. The challenge had only just begun. Would she be ready to face what loomed in the shadows, the true test of her transformation that lay within her family's responses? The next morning, light streamed into the kitchen, illuminating the remnants of last night's dinner. Ellen surveyed the dishes piled in the sink, remnants of her family's mixed reactions swirling in her mind, each one a reminder of the delicate balancing act she now faced. The anxiety of their skepticism darkened her thoughts, yet an unfamiliar spark of resolve bubbled beneath. The day stretched before her, beckoning her to build on the momentum she had initiated. She had set the stage for change, but she knew maintaining that energy would require strategic planning. What she desperately wanted was not just acceptance, but an embrace of the new path she had laid out. In the quiet moments while scrubbing the plates, she realized that forging this new road would require more than just hope. It would necessitate a meticulous approach, one that integrated her family's past with her vision of a healthier future. Ellen decided to devote the day to planning. She opened her laptop, the screen flickering to life as she began drafting a menu that catered to both her family's tastes and her aspirations. Each choice she made felt like a statement, a declaration of her determination. She meticulously plotted out meals that incorporated familiar flavors transformed through healthier techniques. This would not be a rejection of their culinary heritage, but rather an evolution of it. The first ideas flowed: hearty vegetable stews, quinoa salads rich with herbs and seasonings they loved, and whole grain variations of old favorites. Perhaps Grandma's beloved meatballs could find a place within a new recipe that incorporated lentils. The challenge summoned her creativity, igniting a surge of excitement she hadn't experienced in a while. Each recipe was an opportunity to teach, to guide them slowly into this unfamiliar territory. but she couldn't forget about the urgent need to provide context. Simply presenting new meals without a narrative would risk their potential rejection. She needed to frame this journey as one they were taking together, collaboratively reshaping their familial fabric. Ellen envisioned another family gathering, this time with an interactive cooking session, a tapestry woven with stories of health and hope that would create a deeper understanding among them. Yet doubts still lingered in the corners of her mind. Would her family be willing to engage? Could she persuade them to see this transformation not as a threat, but as a bond? Memories of her grandmother's heavy sigh surfaced. "What you put on the table is what keeps us together," her grandmother had said. Could changing that table mean breaking apart their cherished traditions? The weight of such thoughts pressed heavily on her heart. In those moments of uncertainty, Ellen recognized the importance of addressing resistance more directly. She needed to confront her family's fears, to openly discuss why they hesitated, and to reassure them that their cherished memories would not be erased, but rather honored differently. It was time to draw strength from her love for them and morph it into a platform for dialogue. Later that evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Alice. "Are we still doing dinner soon? I've been thinking about how much you loved cooking that lasagna." A smile crept across Ellen's face. Yes, the conversation was beginning, and it was time to seize the opportunity, to open the channels of communication she so desperately needed. They could build this bridge together, she texted back. She pondered the lingering silence that Grandma had instigated the night before. Unresolved, it echoed in her heart. Would this next gathering lead to a deeper resistance? Or would her kitchen become a safe haven where love mingled with new ideas? With new clarity, Ellen drew a deep breath, revitalized with purpose. The next encounter would not merely be about food, it would demand courage to confront vulnerability at the table. She would embrace the challenge ahead, knowing it was time to face not just her family's willingness for change, but also her own lingering fears about whether she could truly lead them into this new chapter of their lives. Gathering her resolve, she texted Alice again, her fingers hovering over the keys. "Let us plan something soon. I have an idea that could change everything." As the message sent, Ellen's heart raced. The moment of truth awaited her, and she knew that every gathering would bring her closer to either connection or conflict. Each conversation would require her to push through the barriers built on years of traditions, setting the stage for future growth, both within herself and her family. And there she stood, facing the horizon of uncertainty, ready to carve her own path in the uncharted territory that lied ahead. The anticipation of her gathering with Alice propelled Ellen forward. Her heart raced not just out of excitement, but from a steady stream of anxiety entwined with hope. As she moved through the day, her mind oscillated between the menu she had meticulously crafted and the potential reactions of her family. Ellen found herself in the kitchen hours before their planned dinner, washing vegetables with an intensity that mirrored her internal state. Each carrot she scrubbed seemed to symbolize her own fears, stubborn, gritty, but ultimately transformative when cut and prepared with care. Could a simple vegetable elevate this whole concept? Turning her thoughts into action, she began chopping, letting the rhythmic sound of the knife ground her in the present. Plates and ingredients sprawled across the counter like a battlefield. The effort to modernize their meals felt monumental, yet another part of her took it in stride, reminding her that change, like a good recipe, required both patience and persuasiveness. Mid-chop, Ellen paused, holding a piece of zucchini and pondering how she would present this vibrant dish to her family. Her mind flashed back to past dinners, the laughter, the teasing, her grandmother's adeptness at reading the room. Would she have approved of this bold shift? Would she have embraced the unknown, or would she have clung tightly to what was comfortable? The memory of her grandmother's laughter mixed with the scent of simmering garlic and onions sparked Ellen's determination. She would forge ahead, driven not just by the taste of the food, but also by the implication of those choices. As Alice arrived, her familiar presence filled the kitchen with warmth. Ellen forced a smile, suppressing her nervous energy. Alice, with her easygoing demeanor, immediately noticed the tension. "You okay? You seem intense." Ellen chuckled lightly, though her heart raced. "Just thinking about the menu. This isn't just a dinner. It's an initiative." "An initiative?" Alice raised an eyebrow, but her intrigue encouraged Ellen to elaborate. I want to show my family how different meals can preserve our traditions while moving us towards healthier living. But I'm terrified they won't see it that way. Alice chuckled softly. You terrified? I don't believe it. You're the culinary queen. Feeling a small rush of pride at being called a queen, Ellen straightened. She rarely saw herself that way. Perhaps being audacious wasn't so bleak, nor was her desire for growth in this personal venture. Together, they moved through the next steps of preparation, one stir of the pot at a time, Eleanor relishing how Alice's confidence seemed contagious. However, as the meal came together, Ellen couldn't shake off the feeling that the real battle lay not in the food itself, but in the conversations that would follow. She faced her own mortality wrapped in worries. Could she influence the way her family experienced their meals? The doorbell chimed, and Ellen's stomach fluttered. Her heartbeat quickened at the thought of her family filling the space. She felt as if she was on the brink of something both thrilling and terrifying. Setting a table, she arranged the dishes with care, layering them like fortifications against any potential reservations from her loved ones. Family members trickled in. Ellen welcomed them with sips of fresh juice rather than the customary soda. Pausing to observe their reactions, she saw confusion, curiosity, and an inkling of skepticism fill their eyes. Her heart sank, but she quickly reminded herself to breathe. Before long, the dinner table was laden with dishes Ellen had painstakingly prepared. Would this be the moment where her family would accept this journey, or would it lead to resistance and emotional discord? Okay, everyone, she began, voice steady despite the bubbling chaos of nerves beneath. I have some new recipes to share with you tonight. The room seemed to tilt, and with it, her ambition felt fragile yet resolute. Could she guide their reactions, shape their views as masterfully as she had crafted her meal? As she met their skeptical gazes, the air thickened with unspoken questions and uncertainties. She knew the moment had arrived. The conversation would unfurl in unexpected ways, and she could either shy away from the challenges or embrace them to build the family bond she craved. Yet the stakes loomed higher, testing the pivotal resolve she had fought to sustain throughout her meal preparations. Would her vision illuminate understanding or plunge her into conflict? Ellen felt the tide turning in her favor, but only if she leaned into the vulnerability that awaited her at the table. This was just the beginning, and she knew too well that navigating her family's response would demand all her courage and creativity. As she took a deep breath, aware of all that was still at stake, she steeled herself, ready to begin unraveling the true essence of change. The moment hung in the air, heavy with expectations and possibilities. Ellen sensed the shift as her family's curious gazes fixed on her. For an instant, she considered retreating into the kitchen, allowing the familiar comfort of solitude to envelop her. But no, she reminded herself. She was standing on the threshold of change, a courageous leap into the unknown. Why don't we start with these? Ellen gestured towards the vibrant roasted vegetables, hoping their colors would evoke intrigue. The scent wafting through the room felt like a lifeline, grasped firmly in her hands. They're drizzled with a homemade balsamic glaze I conjured up after watching a culinary show. Her sister, Lila, raised an eyebrow, a mixture of interest and skepticism written across her face. You made your own glaze? But why not just buy it? The question hung there, a challenge, making Ellen's heart race. I wanted to try something different, something fresh, she replied, each word feeling like a weight on her shoulders. I thought we could do better than store-bought. Lila shrugged, a slight smile threatening to break her serious facade. Fair enough. But you know we're pretty set in our ways, right? What's wrong with a little convenience? Unexpectedly, the challenge opened a door inside Ellen, a realization that stirred her passion. Nothing is wrong with convenience, she quickly replied, her voice steadying. But what if we could find both convenience and health? Are these really healthy? Her brother Sam interjected, leaning over the table with skepticism. I mean, do you even know what's in that glaze? Every question felt like a dagger, yet with each thrust she found newer depths of resolve within herself. It's made with natural ingredients, nothing artificial. I really believe meals can be both nutritious and satisfying. The same with our traditions. We don't have to abandon them to embrace healthier choices. Sam's brow furrowed, contemplating her words as the others remained silent. With every passing moment, Ellen felt her resolve strengthen. This wasn't just a meal. It was a mission, a declaration of independence from the patterns that had kept her family bound in a cycle. As the evening unfolded, Ellen realized it wasn't merely the food that held power, but her voice. The very act of speaking up in her family's domain felt revolutionary. Yet there was a weighty truth pressing on her, an awareness that this dinner could unravel or solidify the family ties she cherished. Would they receive her ideas as a threat or an invitation? When it came time to taste the roasted vegetables, she held her breath, memories of past dinners flooding her senses, laughter, conflict, connection. As her family took their first bites, Ellen studied their faces, searching for signs of acceptance. Lila's chopsticks hesitated midair. Her brother began to chew, and Ellen saw an immediate flash of surprise ripple through his expression. "What's this?" he asked, his voice tinged with unexpected delight. "The glaze is tangy but sweet, right?" Ellen nudged. "And the veggies, they're not just about nutrition, they're about flavor." His nod felt like recognition not just of the meal, but of her intentions. Encouraged, Ellen pressed forward, sharing anecdotes of inspiration she'd drawn from their grandmother's cooking, weaving nostalgia into her narrative as delicately as she mixed herbs. But in the shadows of her victory danced a nagging doubt. What if this was just a momentary win? What if her family would still resist the larger transformation she envisioned for them? Each laugh, each nod of approval felt precarious amidst the looming walls of tradition and expectation. Tensions simmered beneath the laughter. The table filled with shared stories of memories around food, yet Ellen remained acutely aware that every positive reaction could flip into criticism at any moment. At last, as they savored their meal and exchanged pleasantries, Ellen contemplated how she would advocate for continuous change. Was this just a one-off dinner, or could she build on this evening's success to implement a more sustainable dialogue about nutrition and lifestyle? With the taste of victory lingering in her mouth, Ellen felt an unexpected brimming of confidence, but also the realization that it wasn't enough to lead a single charge into the fray. Her heart swelled with yearning. Could she emerge as the bridge between her family's history and a healthier future? As the last remnants of dessert vanished and dishes were cleared, Ellen glanced at her family members. Their conversations were lively, yet her gaze lingered at the empty seat where their grandmother once sat, perhaps a reminder that not all change is immediate. But one truth stood clear, coursing through her veins like adrenaline. Her journey had just begun, and now she was armed with the possibility of growth. Next family gathering, we could try a cooking challenge? Utilize our classic recipes, with a healthy twist, she suggested, a flicker of hope threading her voice that moment. It felt as though the tides of tradition were beginning to shift. However, as their laughter continued to echo, she understood that the real work lay ahead. Confrontation beckoned, and the time had come to embrace it with open arms, to navigate beyond mere discussions and delve into deeper convictions. So much rested on this moment. This was a challenge she was now ready to face, an adventure she had unwittingly invited upon herself. What would she discover when the heat turned up for real? Ellen awoke the following morning with a mixture of anticipation and dread swirling in her stomach. The dinner had sparked something she hadn't fully expected within herself, a glimmer of hope paired with the burden of expectation from her family. Change was complex, and just as she had tentatively stepped into their world of food and tradition, she now wrestled with the notion of stepping away from her comfort zone to embrace challenges they would inevitably present. Her thoughts spiraled as she tidied the kitchen, fragments of yesterday's encounter replaying in her mind like film scenes. If her cooking was a catalyst, how could she leverage that beyond a single dinner? The lingering question of how to approach this cooking challenge nagged, hesitant to let her forget it. Could she lead more than just a shift in cuisine? Could she foster a new openness, a healthy dialogue about more than food? After washing the last dish, Ellen sat at her modest kitchen table, its surface scattered with notes from her various culinary attempts. She flipped through them, searching for inspiration. A recipe for quinoa stuffed bell peppers caught her attention. A thought struck her: perhaps this recipe could serve as a metaphor for the transformation she hoped to achieve with her family. The peppers, once hollow, would be filled with vibrant flavors, much like her own aspirations, to fill the void in their dietary habits with health and enjoyment. But doubt crept in as her mind ventured towards their reactions at the challenge. Would they embrace the idea of stepping outside the restrictive confines of their culinary traditions? The prospect of their resistance disheartened her. As if summoned by her thoughts, Sam's skeptical face loomed large, a reminder of just how precarious this path could be. Yet, gently nudged by a flicker of determination, she resolved to create a plan. She would formulate a cooking challenge strategy, one that capitalized on their fondness for older recipes and coaxed in her vision of healthier living. She flipped to a new page and started jotting down ideas, capturing early thoughts on how to present these classic dishes in ways that respected their history, yet dared to renew their essence. The latest wave of inspiration washed over her as she crafted pemmican, a recipe rooted in her family's ancestry, but infused with contemporary, health-conscious ingredients. Glancing at her notebook, she could visualize how excited her family would be, exploring their own history through their taste buds. Ellen mentally dissected each recipe, ensuring they balanced nostalgia with novelty. The cooking challenge would revolve around cooperative cooking, blending their classic recipes with her innovations. Surely, their shared experiences of conquering kitchen tasks could nurture connection, encourage laughter, and perhaps diminish the weight of her parents' doubts. In preparation for her next family gathering, Ellen felt a determination solidify within her, a burgeoning conviction that she would not shy away from dissenting voices, but rather engage them head-on. If anyone could navigate this, it was her. As the day unfolded, Ellen put her ideas into action. She visited the farmer's market, bouncing between the stalls as vibrant produce filled her basket, thrilling her senses like a painter's palette. The thought of involving her family in selecting ingredients ignited an even stronger passion. Their involvement would deepen the meaning behind each dish. That night, as she simmered a fragrant sauce, a revelation hit her. She could create a sense of unity by emphasizing the importance of choice and collaboration. If her family participated in selecting what ingredients they wanted to explore, they would feel a stake in the outcome. The dining table could transform into a space of innovation rather than a realm dominated by resistance. But in her heart, she worried. Would they sabotage it? Half-heartedly participate? The uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud. Her confidence teetered, but she fought against it, asserting that this was the moment to enact her vision of change. With a deep breath, Ellen steeled herself for the challenge ahead, the moment when her family might confront their discomfort and carve out a new flavor of tradition. As the clock ticked closer to the gathering, she found herself questioning everything. Would the old ways shadow her efforts, or would they embrace this new chapter together? The opportunity was ripe, and she knew that every cooking challenge, every recipe shared, could either solidify or dismantle their family fabric. Glancing at the time, she realized it was now or never. They would gather in less than a week. Ellen paused, bolstered by resolve. It was a pivotal moment for her and for them. As she wiped her hands on her apron, she smiled, envisioning her family whipping up creativity within each dish shared around the table. But what if her excitement about the challenge masked deeper conflicts and expectations? Deep down, she knew this gathering would reveal much more than new recipes. Enduring truths awaited their unveiling. Would she cultivate harmony or ignite chaos? The reality of outspoken dissent loomed, daring her to face it. The challenge had set the stage. It was time to rise to it. Would her efforts transform mere meal preparation into an exploration of identity, or lead to confrontations that would shatter her ambitions? The clock was ticking, and the path ahead was less certain than ever. Ellen stood in her kitchen, heart racing as she reviewed the array of fresh ingredients laid out on the countertop, each one now symbolizing not just a recipe, but the essence of change. The time for the family cooking challenge had arrived. In just a few hours, her home would be filled with the familiar faces she loved, yet beneath that comfort lay a significant weight: her endeavor to bridge old traditions with healthier choices. The day had spurred her into a whirlwind of preparation. She had poured her energy into crafting dishes that embodied a deep respect for their roots, but incorporated the healthier ingredients she yearned to showcase. Today wasn't merely an experiment. It was a pivotal opportunity to convey the importance of health, family, and the ever-present evolution of love through food. As her family arrived, Ellen felt the tension mix with excitement. Voices filled the air, laughter mingling with the scents of her kitchen. She greeted each member with warmth, her heart simultaneously buoyed and heavy. When the time finally came to gather around the kitchen island, she knew this was her moment. "Welcome, everyone. Today, we embark on a cooking challenge," she announced, confidence radiating in her voice despite the knot in her stomach. "We'll each choose a classic recipe and add our own twist, healthier, yet still delicious." "What do you mean, healthier?" Sam interjected, his skepticism creeping in, but Ellen simply smiled, ready to turn doubt into dialogue. "I have faith that we can create something amazing that respects our favorites while nourishing our bodies too." Throughout the evening, the atmosphere transcended mere cooking. Ellen's family began to engage, tasked with the exploration of ingredients, inspired by their discussions about substitutions and flavorful enhancements. As they diced, stirred, and concocted, Ellen witnessed something remarkable, each family member sharing stories surrounding their beloved recipes. "Remember when Grandma taught us how to make her famous lasagna?" Alice chimed in, her eyes twinkling as she reminisced about old family gatherings. Ellen's heart swelled. This was the connection she had hoped to ignite. "I swapped the pasta for zucchini," her sister continued. Encouraged by this collaborative spirit, Ellen ventured to present the underlying philosophy of their effort. Changing the ingredients doesn't mean changing who we are. It means building upon our legacy. The reactions began to shift, doubt transforming into curiosity. As the dishes began to take shape, so too did the discussions deepen. Sam lifted a spoonful of Ellen's modified marinara sauce, and an eyebrow quirked with intrigue. "This is surprisingly good. What is your secret?" "The secret is simply being open to new things," Ellen responded, her voice steady and confident. Each acceptance, each spark of interest felt like a small victory. Reassurance washed over her as she witnessed her family embracing her vision. After their creations were complete, Ellen felt a surge of pride as they sat down to enjoy the fruits of their labor. The table, adorned with healthy twists on cherished dishes, was a beautiful tableau of both history and innovation. They tasted each dish with cautious enthusiasm, laughter punctuating their comments about flavors, surprises, and textures. Ellen's heart soared with satisfaction as she watched her family dive into the healthier versions of their beloved meals, tasting not just the food, but the very essence of growth and acceptance. In those moments, she realized she had accomplished more than just recreating recipes. She had fostered deeper connections, bridging gaps between the past and the present. As dessert approached, her healthier peach cobbler, proudly served, she posed a question that had lingered throughout the preparation. "How do we feel about making this a regular family event?" The laughter subsided, and silence filled the space as they considered her invite. Then, with a gentle nod, Alice replied, "I love that idea. It could become our new tradition." Ellen's spirit lifted with their acceptance. She exhaled as she embraced the profound transformation not just within herself, but also among her family. Courage had driven this change, a willingness to face the uncomfortable head-on, leading to stunning revelations of acceptance. Embracing who she was becoming while sharing it with her loved ones had proven to be a turning point in her journey. As the gathering quietly wound down, Ellen felt a solid confidence flow through her, a recognition of her ability to influence change not through force, but through love and vulnerability. She had navigated her family's resistance with patience, proving incarnate that her transformation was not merely about dietary choices, but a confident declaration of her devotion to family, health, and legacy. With this newfound achievement, Ellen stood at the threshold of her kitchen, eyes gazing out the kitchen window at the brightening horizon as new possibilities awaited. She felt proud of the growth she had not only achieved in herself, but had also inspired in others. The legacy she was crafting extended beyond traditional recipes, manifesting a robust framework for harmony, understanding, and togetherness. Now was the time to step into this next chapter not just as a grandmother devoted to her family, but as a leader, a creator, and an embodiment of resilience. Ellen knew that this was but the beginning, a beautiful dawn illuminating the path ahead. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about this transformative journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Don't wait even one more second.